Hi, welcome to My Favorite Mistake. I'm your host, Mark Graben. We're joined today by Tonya Roberts. She is CEO, a fractional COO, Chief Operations Officer, and HR consultant and executive coach at her firm, Harmony Consulting. So Tonya specializes in helping women entrepreneurs scale their businesses from 6 to 7 figures through streamlined operations. She has a robust background, having honed her skills at Deloitte and other top consulting firms. LaToya has an MS in HR management and certifications in 4-dimensional change management. So, LaTonya, thanks for joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here.
Great. Good to have you here. And there's a lot to talk about, but I think first things first, we'll dive right in. I would love to hear from the different things you've done in your career. What's your favorite mistake?
My favorite mistake, it's one that I had to learn over and over again, and that is staying in a role that I've outgrown and taking on too much, right? So throughout my career, I've been hired for various things, say organizational transformation or change management consultant, but then I get in a role and deeply curious, I want to try new things and I discover all these new skills, but then I've taken on 3 roles. And that can lead to burnout or just, not being happy in the job anymore. But I stay because I was hired to do a thing and finish what I started.
Yeah.
But what that did for me was, after a couple cases of burnout to my demise, right? Hard lesson learned. I did find out what truly made me happy. And that led to a career in operations, which really is a combination of all the things that I've done over the nearly 20 years of consulting, and allowed me to really lean in on my gifts and truly serve my clients, as well as make myself happy and enjoy the work that I do.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you found your way into something that you really enjoy and you're thriving with, and hopefully that doesn't lead to any more instances of burnout. I mean, what were some of the signs that you saw, or maybe that others saw for
Um,
burnout?
we always talk about the Sunday scaries. It's that feeling of, oh, I don't want to go to work tomorrow. So there was that you think it's normal. And then it's the exhaustion. I remember one time I went to work and I was just feeling really tired. And I was like, oh, I've just been working hard that
Mm-hmm.
day. And I hopped on a conference call and it was an hour. And by the end of the call, I was laying across my desk because I was so tired.
Yeah, this
Right?
is before being on camera. You could get away.
Right. This
I
was,
guess
thank
you
goodness,
could
it was
get
before being on
away.
camera. I think we
Yeah,
had Skype
right.
back then.
Right,
But I was not on camera. And
right,
so,
right.
yeah, my coworkers had to take me to the hospital, and
Oh
then I
gosh.
was diagnosed with fatigue. I didn't even know that
Hmm.
was a thing.
Hmm.
And I wasn't at work for 2 weeks. So that was one. Sometimes you get weight loss, or mood changes or appetite changes, and just physical exhaustion, mental exhaustion, just not wanting to be there. And I think that our body tells us when something is wrong, even before our mind has caught up and processed what's going on. And
Hmm.
what I learned is to really pay attention to the signs that our body gives us.
Yeah. And that happens to a lot of people. A lot of people on the podcast have talked about that. How did you best bounce back? Was that did that mean changing jobs and getting a fresh start, or finding some strategies to get out of that fatigue and burnout?
Yeah, so that was early in my consulting career, maybe 3, 4 years in. So I did not change jobs. But what I did was I really started focusing on that self care.
Hmm.
I used my paid time off, took my vacations.
Hmm.
I took breaks throughout the day. Eventually, I got into meditation. And later on, I actually went through a health and wellness coaching certification because I wanted to really understand how does my nutrition and my sleep and all the other parts of well-being tied into how I showed up. And that was really helpful.
Yeah. And then, was there a point where you recognized the pattern? So you said you'd gone through this multiple times, and that
Mhm.
happens. And was did you just hit a point where you recognize, okay, this has happened before, it's happening again? Is that what led to you starting your own firm and finding that happiness?
It did. So I did started recognizing the patterns. And the second time I dealt with it, I ended up getting vertigo.
Oh.
So my body just really just shuts down and says, girl, you've got to stop.
Mhm.
Right. So I started really paying attention to what was going on. And when I decided to walk away from Deloitte at the time, I was starting to see, I'm tired. I want a little bit more. I was on a really stressful project at the time. It was during COVID, and it was a COVID related project.
Mm-hmm.
So you're dealing with all of the transitions. I had just moved my family from DC down to Atlanta. So we're dealing with that and kids and change. And it was just a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I just really I wanted to make sure that I wasn't put in a position like I had been in before where I was
Mm-hmm.
burnt out, but I still wanted to do the work that I like to do. And so I made a plan to walk away and really go all in on my business.
Yeah. And I'm sure, I mean, maybe you could explain a little bit more or elaborate on, you talked about finding what truly makes you happy. I think it's fair to say I'm not a burnout expert. I've gone through this in different phases of my career. I think it's fair to say that hard work and long hours in and of itself doesn't always lead to burnout. Like there's
Right.
other variables, other factors. How
Mhm.
would you say your experience was?
Leading to burnout?
Yeah, or
It
just
was
what's different now that you'd say, well, I'm sure you're working hard in your business. What's working? What's different now that hopefully doesn't lead to burnout for you?
I'm very intentional about what I call work life harmony.
Mm-hmm.
So, name my business is Harmony Consulting Group. Harmony is it's my favorite word in the world. I don't think that you really have work life balance. At some point, you're going to give more in one area or the other. But I do believe in harmony. And what that means for me is planning out, which is something that I do with my clients. We're strategically planning. So we're looking out 3 years from now, 5 years now, 1 year from now, and figuring out, okay, well, what are those areas throughout the year where you're going to really have to lean into your business and you're going to work heavily, and then make sure we're building in periods of rest. So, for example, last week I was out for a week. I was on vacation, my own solo sabbatical, so I could rest because I had just gone through 2 months of just working really really hard. So I'm very
Mm-hmm.
intentional about that. Um, and then putting systems in place to where it is not just on me. Another thing that I do for my clients is, even though you are running a business, it doesn't mean that you have to do or work every single role of the business. So I have systems in place. So when I do go on vacation, I can actually vacation
Mm-hmm.
and not have to worry about the business, and it keeps going without me.
Yeah.
And I think when I was in corporate, even though I was on a team, it was still harder to do that
Mm-hmm.
because your team is still going and they're reaching out to you and saying, hey, I need this, I need this. And sometimes we put ourselves in a position of we're the only one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the wrong thing to do, right?
Yeah.
We should be training other people and making sure that you're not the only stopgap in this process. And so in my business, I make sure I'm not the only one.
Yeah. And I'm sure all of those experiences and things you've learned along the way helps you then coach and serve entrepreneurs that you're working for. For those who don't know what a fractional COO does,
Mm-hmm.
and asking this partly on my own behalf, like what can you kind of talk through? If there's a typical sort of situation or engagement where an entrepreneur reaches out to you, there's a certain role that a COO is going to come in and help with. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So think of us as the person who is going to come in and make your vision reality. So
Mm-hmm.
say you want to launch a new program and you have this great idea. What I would do is come in and make sure that your idea is very clear in terms of, well, what is it that you're trying to create? Who is it that you're trying to target? What's your timeline? How do you know what success looks like? And then I'm going to put your systems and your structure in place. And that includes your technology, that includes your processes, that includes your people. And I'm going to make sure that it runs like a well-oiled machine so that you can stay in love with your business and not be a slave to your business.
And I mean, do you find, how often is an entrepreneur reaching out because they're stalled out and struggling to grow versus being like, a crisis of, are we going to survive or not?
It's more so that they're ready to grow, but they don't know how.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I do have some that are in that crisis mode of, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my business if I don't do something soon. I just did a proposal on that. But it's more so those that are ready to grow. So think of your person that is maybe making $250,000 to $500,000 a year. They know they need to bring on new clients because they need to move out of that owner operator role where they are working on the business and in the business. And now they need to start hiring, whether it's contractors or employees, to come on and transfer some of that intellectual knowledge and capabilities onto someone else so that they can work on building the business out further. And I love working with that group because they have this drive of knowing that, we need to grow, but I don't know how. So I tell everyone I'm the how, right? I come in like, tell me what you want, and I'm going to tell you 10 ways to make it happen, right? And that's not always the strong suit of the CEO, especially those that are more of the visionaries. They're big ideas. They don't know about the details. I love the details. Let me come in and pull out all the details.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And are you quite often working with, a founder or co-founder, CEO?
Yes. All of my clients have been founders.
Okay.
So I typically work with consultants or coaches or service providers who come from corporate and decided to branch out on their own like I did. And they're used to having this big machine behind them. And now it's just them and an assistant and a few contractors. And that is a very different environment to work in. And I have been able to work in both. I've worked for big companies, like you said before, Booz Allen and Deloitte, but then I've also worked with smaller consulting companies. And so I understand what both environments look like, and I can really adapt the methodologies and the tools to that person to help them really scale with ease.
And when you and I talked before, I think we discovered kind of a common background in some of these structured improvement methodologies. My background is really more of what we might call lean management, kind of Toyota-based approach. Your approach has been, I've had other people on the show who would describe what they're doing as Lean Six Sigma. I was wondering, if you could kind of talk us through, for those who aren't familiar with Lean Six Sigma, how do you introduce that to an entrepreneur, founder, CEO, and talk through the benefits of that for a small company? Because people might think, oh, that sounds like a big company thing, but that might not be
I don't
true.
even use the word Lean Six Sigma.
Okay.
Behind
the scenes, we can geek out and use that language.
Right.
So a better question would be, how do you describe this then?
Yeah, I will talk to them about what are their processes, what is working, what is not working, what is their, in Lean Six Sigma terms, we say, well, what is your critical path? What are those must-have activities that need to occur in order for you to get the results that you want? And then I'm going to also integrate workflows and AI in different ways that we can make it go faster, make it go better. And that just kind of blows their mind. So I can say, well, give me one of those routine tasks that you're doing, whether it's content planning or proposal writing, and I'm going to work with them and say, okay, well, I can create a custom GPT for you. And what used to take you a week or several hours, we can get this down to an hour or two. And what did they hear? You just saved me several hours of work. You make this super easy. Sign me up.
Yeah. Right. So what do you use to build a custom GPT for a business?
So I'm using Chat GPT, or I use Claude for the tool. And then I am going to hopefully they have some processes documented or some samples of, if it's a proposal, I want to see some sample proposals. I'll scrub it to take out any proprietary information. And I want to understand, well, what are some of their main products and services? How did they deliver it? So their methodology. I want to understand the common headers for their proposal. So what are you including in there? Is it just the introduction, your scope, your personnel costs? What are those main areas? And then we create the GPT that says, okay, listen to the transcript. So I love for people to give me a transcript of their sales call. So if you're using Zoom and you have something like Fathom or Otter, give me that transcript, and that transcript is going to be loaded into their GPT, and it's going to take the prompt from the GPT, and it will say, okay, well, this person has this pain point and it maps to this service. And then here is the, for the most part, fleshed out proposal. And then you go in and tweak it a little bit after that. So that has saved a lot of time. I implement that in my business as well.
Oh, okay. Because I was about to ask. Yeah, you beat me to it. I was going to ask. For for your own consulting firm, it's not like, you're utilizing those tools and kind of bringing what you're learning into your clients. And
I am my own client, so a lot of the things that I do for my clients, I've done it for me and tested it out first.
Yeah. So I think you've touched on one mistake somebody might make with a public AI tool would be putting proprietary information into these systems. That's a good tip. Are there other mistakes that people might make when they're new to using some of these AI tools?
Yeah, make sure that you know where you can train your AI. So putting in things like your voice and tone so that it sounds like you and it doesn't sound like the typical AI language is one of them. What type of instructions? What I love now about AI, it's very conversational. So you don't have to be what they call a prompt engineer and understand, make it understand this role and do exactly this. You can just say, hey, chat. I call mine chat. You can name it whatever you want to name it. Like, hey, chat, I want to build a content planning program that tells me what to do for the next year. Like, I'm working on a podcast myself. And I'm like, here's the type of podcast. Here's the audience. What does that look like? And now I have a complete 3-year plan, or not a 3-year, but a 3-month plan on how to do this, right? And it's just having a conversation with them, so it doesn't have to be this scary thing. And then the other thing I will say, along with the proprietary stuff, you can click in the settings. There's an area that you can click or check a box. It's kind of hard to find. I don't know why it's hard, but check a little box that says, do not train the tool based on my data.
Oh.
And so that's just a little extra little stopgap to say, okay, I'm not putting any proprietary information in there, but if I did, please don't.
Yeah. Keep this private. Are there ways that people could set up a purely private AI tool that doesn't have any of those concerns?
Not that I am aware of right now. Your GPTs can be made public or private, so that that is one way that you could do it. Claude does allow you to set up their GPT is called projects. You can set up the project and it's just for you, so you don't share it with anyone. So in a way, you do it that way. If you're using chat and you set up your own GPT, just make sure in the end, right before you finalize it, you just hit not to share with anyone. So it's a private GPT just for you, or only shareable if they have the specific link.
Okay. Well, some good tips. So there's the whole front. I mean, this is going to keep evolving pretty rapidly. I mean, there's the technology keeps evolving, and I mean, it seems like the technology is it's only going to get better in terms of. So what do you see? I don't know. I don't know. It's a tough question, or I mean, we've taken this deep dive into to AI. I mean, what do you anticipate comes next in terms of benefits to your business or your clients? A vision for AI.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've been sharing is thinking about the workforce of the future. And it truly is a combination of your AI employees as well as your human employees.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what you would have to do here is really think about how can not the AI employees necessarily take over for a person, but how do they complement each other?
Mm-hmm.
So, we go back to those repetitive tasks that you're doing. How do you use the AI to do those repetitive tasks and use your people for more of the strategic planning and those things where you really need to reach out and have that customer support, because you're always going to have people that are like, I don't want to talk to a chatbot. Give me a person, the person
Yeah.
that calls in the 1-800 number, like zero, operator,
Yeah,
operator.
I do that.
You,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
you still need to have the person there, but there are certainly ways that you can streamline how you do work and increase your efficiency and merge the two so that they're complementary and not necessarily working against each other.
Mm-hmm. So again, our guest today is Tonya Roberts. Harmony Consulting is her firm. I wanted to ask, how tell us about kind of going in this direction of working in particular with women who are entrepreneurs and business owners.
Yeah. Women, we just have certain challenges that, unlike our male counterparts, we have to overcome. And I am really big on women's empowerment. And
Mm-hmm.
I have male customers too. I have
Sure.
a male client right now as well, and I've been executive coach for several men.
Mm-hmm.
But just have a soft spot for women, and just making sure that we are in a position to have that freedom and have the support that we need. And I think that my style really caters to how a woman does business.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I can go down the scope of, we can get into the woo. I love the woo and human design and all that. And some of my men are like, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
it flows a little bit better with my personality. But I can be very type A and, hey, let's get it done too. So it's just, whoever comes to me, and if it works, if my personality gels with your personality, like, I'm sure you don't work well with certain people, and that's okay too. I just want to see the women thrive. And
Sure.
it's Women's History Month right now as a recording,
Mm-hmm.
so why not?
Yes. Just past International Women's Day, and
Yeah.
yeah. Um, so, as a fractional COO, maybe the answer is it depends. But how long do you end up in that role typically with a company to help them see
Mhm.
these things through?
Yeah, it really does depend on what we're working on.
Mhm.
I strive for a long-term relationship, right? So at minimum, it's 3 months because I want to
Mhm.
see results.
Mhm.
I do work on either a retainer or subscription basis, or we can do project by project, so it can be a little bit shorter. But I'm coming in and I'm doing an annual strategic plan with you, and then we're doing quarterly business reviews. So my goal is to make sure that you can level up in each quarter. You're going to have different opportunities, different rocks that you are trying to, overcome. So I love long-term planning. And
Mhm.
then I want you to actually grow to a point where you need a full-time COO, right? We're
Mhm.
scaling.
Yeah.
So however long that takes, and that can be a year, that can be several years. So I'm here for it.
Yeah. And the fractional part, I mean, it's not even just a matter of a short time frame, but part time, like X number
Right.
of hours per week, and you're balancing personally your part time with all of these different companies, right?
Right. And still a member of your C suite team, can still have management responsibility, can still have budget control and all the things that your full time COO would have. It's just you don't have me on a full time basis. So
Mm-hmm.
that allows you to benefit from the expertise and get what you need, but at a fraction of the cost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another, yes, fractional time, fractional cost. Fair
There you
enough. But
go.
yeah, but then as you help them succeed and they grow into the need and the opportunity to hire someone in full time, um, do you anticipate a day where maybe there's some company where there's a great fit where you would transition into being full time COO if it was a special situation?
Yeah, I don't limit myself. I think that's one of the things that I
Yeah.
loved about going into consulting. It's something new every day or every
Right.
few days, so it's
Yeah.
not limiting. I get bored, so I could never do regular job. But if
Uh-huh.
I found a company that really aligned with who I am and we worked, why not? I may
Yeah.
take it on for, a set amount of time and go from there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So one other thing that you're doing would be fun to talk about is what you call the Harmony Ops Collective. So tell us about that community and what that is and how that got started.
Sure. So Harmony Ops Collective is my Facebook community. It is free, and that is a space where we can collaborate, we can learn and grow. And I'm sharing tips with people that are owner operators or perform in an operations function or want to get into the work that I do. And so I am sharing how do you run the operations, what tools work for you, different tips, different strategies. We're going to start doing some training. I'm preparing for a 3-day challenge with them as well, and just
Mhm.
really setting them up for success. And later on in the year, we'll be starting our cohorts, and those are going to be paid cohorts where we really go deep on operations. And I would love to come in and, even if it's companies that can't bring me on as their fractional COO, they can send someone through my cohort
Mhm.
and they can serve in an operations capacity for them.
Yeah. So kind of a smaller scale opportunity to help other people that maybe can't right now, can't yet do a full engagement. That seems like a smart strategy.
Yeah, one of the things that I did throughout my career was learning and development. So I love training, and I still do that in my work as well. So coming in and
Mhm.
facilitating training and teaching and sharing, and this is my way that I can continue to do that.
Yeah. So there'll be a link to that in the show notes if people want to go and take a closer look there. Harmony Ops Collective. As we wrap up, Latanya, I know you have speaking of operations and your mentions of systems and processes. You've got an operations checklist
Yes,
for
I
people. If you
did.
want to tell us about that.
Sure. So this checklist is 8 key areas that I go through to help you with your business, just to see if you're on the right track, identify areas for improvement. And we're covering everything from your growth operations model. How are you doing customer outreach, your performance metrics, your lean operations? We go pretty deep.
Mhm.
The checklist is something that I will be giving out as a free checklist, but with my clients, we'll have a longer, more detailed system or assessment that we would go through to make sure that they are headed in the right direction and really help them to prioritize their work.
Okay. Well, I hope we will put a link in the show notes. I hope people will check that out, Latanya. So again, we've been joined today. Latanya Roberts, harmonyconsultinggroup.org is her website. And please check the show notes for more links and ways to learn more about Latanya and how you can get connected with her or start working with her. So Latanya, thank you so much for being a guest. Thank you for sharing the story. I'm glad you got past that pattern and you're doing work that really makes you happy.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
Thanks.